Intruder alert! Intruder alert! Kakank! Oh, hold on, damn it! I did it again. I've been so good. Intruder alert! Intruder alert! All your base are belong to us. Move zig. Yes, welcome to the 1997 internet. Welcome to 1999 internet. Welcome to Pencil, your favorite Wednesday 8 p.m. EST livecast, brought to you by three expert cartoonists. You know what happens in the zeitgeist? You get to pinch your arm and check if you're dreaming. This is like Inception, like the kick, like when you put your chair back and then you wake up. That's what pencil to pencil is to your nervous system. Hello.
What, you put your chair back, you pinch your arm, then you wake up?
That's a lot of work, man.
Wow.
That's a lot of dopamine going on just to kind of get it going. Guys, welcome back to Pencil to Pencil. I would love to talk about us, but before that, I got some more banter to do. One thing I love about this video scope is that it is brought to you by, like I said, expert cartoonists in the field of cartooning, comics, making, illustration, and all those things in that hemisphere, where you, the lucky few, get to hang out with us live and perhaps ask us questions. I am your first host. My name is Jamar Nicholas. I wear many hats besides this bucket hat. I am the second.
You're lying. That's the only one you wear.
I am the second vice president of the National Cartoonist Society and also the Philadelphia chapter chair. That must mean something, right? On top of all those things, I also have a middle grade graphic novel series at Scholastic Graphics. Leon and the Big Problem will be in stores. My date changed. I don't know if I told you. Will be in stores January 2027. Oh, yeah, it moved a little bit. It's just 2 months, but you know what they say: once you get in your hands, you don't remember how long it took. Right, Steve Conley?
Fantastic. That's fantastic. I love. Wait, so can they? But it can be pre-ordered today, right?
Yes, pre-order it right now. Pre-order it.
You should show the cover.
All right, hold on. Do I have? No, it's in the wrong joint. I'm gonna mess it all up. I'll try and show it before we're done. I'll show it at the end of the day. Remind me. I would be remiss. I would be in remission if I did not introduce you to that. You know that man that walks down the side of the internet superhighway. And remember what Al Gore said: the internet is not a large truck; it is a series of tubes. It's walking alongside those tubes with a melodic tinkle at his back is your friend and mine. By God, it's Stone Cold Steve Conley. What's up, Steve?
Gentlemen, it's so good to see you. It is so good to be back. I'm sorry I missed last week. Apologies to Carlos B. McNeil. But my name is Steve Conley, writer and illustrator, creator of your 32nd favorite webcomic, The Middle Age, which you can read over at middleagecomic.com. It's on the Webtoons, on the Tapas, on the Go Comics. And I also make TTRPG stuff. So if you play the Dungeons and the Dragons and you want to add a little nibblemancy to your world, oh, look at that. Look at that.
You like that?
It's either a beholder if it's licensed, or it's an iTyrant if you're bootlegging.
It is an iTyrant.
iTyrant?
Yeah.
But I would be remiss. I would be in a barrel of persimmons if I did not introduce the Tower of Power, the Man of the Hour, Too Sweet to Be Sour, the marvel of mark making, the maestro of something else that begins with M, Mr. Mike Manley.
Oh,
the maestro of magnificent mark making,
of mastication.
I thought you were saying mac and cheese.
The maestro of the magnificent creamy mac and cheese of comics.
Nice.
Hello, everyone. I will spare you my long resume, except to say that I probably drew your childhood. And I will also be appearing this weekend at the Big Little Comic Book Convention in New Hampshire, along with Danny Fingeroth and Tom DeFalco. So the whole origin of the Dark Hawk team will be there, along with a bunch of other Marvel luminaries. So that'll be fun.
Nice.
Fantastic.
That's great, Mike. Mike, it's good to see you back on the circuit. How's that feel to getting prepped for takeoff to go to a show?
It's very stressful because anytime I take 3 or 4 days off, it just punches a hole in the schedule. So I was burning to get in fact, I just sent in the Sunday Judge Parker. And as soon as I'm done with this, I will send in the daily Judge Parker. So, and then when I come back on Sunday, I will have to burn like a Z-beam off the shoulder of Orion and get the first week of the next Phantom story in. So it's just like, and I don't really do, we were just talking with Matt right before we went live. I did one con last year, which is also this weekend, the More Comic Convention. But that was the first con that I did since COVID. So I don't really do many cons anymore. Occasionally. It's just, with my work schedule, I have to weigh like doing a show, which can be fun, but then it's like you really pay for it when you're on when you're doing a comic strip. Because basically you could, it's like a sponge. You could absorb every minute of your life. You could literally be sitting working because you can never get far enough ahead.
That's what we call in the business your buffer, right? And
Yeah.
the buffer must be fed, right?
I had a little bit of a buffer last year, but buffers can get, you get sick for a couple days, or your pet gets sick, or your computer. Like just the other day, for some reason, between going to eat dinner and coming back, the preferences got reset on my tablet. And I'm like,
so annoying.
What's going on here? And it took me like 40 minutes to figure out what was going on, because I thought first my pen went bad, or maybe the cord went bad, or so that I had to find luckily I had my preferences saved on not only my computer, but my laptop. I mean, not my laptop, my backup. But my old backup, shit the bed. So I'm going to have to take it in and see if they can reboot it. But so it's like you have to have all your stuff saved on multiple places, because even if you have your backup, what happens when your backup goes?
You need to back up your backup.
Yeah. So just little things like that, or your hot water heater goes, or the toilet goes, or the trap in the sink goes, or anything like that throws you off, and it always takes a little while to get back ahead, and especially on a strip like the Phantom, which is like literally every week has a lot of reference in it.
Right.
Has a lot of reference in it. A lot of military stuff, or like some character. Like I had to draw a character that I've drawn once, maybe in the Colonel Weems, which I think I drew.
Oh, sure, Colonel Weems.
Yeah, I drew him like once, like a couple of years ago. So then you got to dig through your stuff, and you got to find reference, and so you have
to be your own archivist also. Right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you get it wrong, you'll hear about it.
Oh, well, you'll hear about it anyway, right? I mean, that's just the nature of it. It's like, well, if you don't get his spit curl just right. So yeah. I mean, it's just part of it's the part of the job that can really add up. Like usually when I get to the new story, I have to sit down and read it, and then I usually make a list of all the reference I need. And Tony helps a lot. He does help quite a bit because he remembers. Oh, that's the story from 1978 March.
Have you had that kind of luck throughout your career of the writer helping you with reference and things like that?
Usually not. Occasionally the writer will, if they wanted an actor, they'd say, "Oh, make it look like Danny DeVito or something," or if it's something. But usually, no, you don't get you don't get the reference. Like they're not going to send you a picture of the Statue of Liberty or something. You got to go find that kind of stuff yourself. So, which will be funny. It sort of ties into something I was talking with Matt Haley about because we both worked on Star Trek stuff, so we can bring that because that's a big part of that job, as you know, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
All three of us have worked on Star Trek, so
not me.
Not yet.
Oh, Leon. And
can you announce anything tonight? Can you announce anything? Any
Leon and the Borg?
There are 4 Johns. Well, you know what? Let's save some of that for our guests, guys. On our way into starting this episode, I just want to say if anybody was kind of like dumbstruck about what happened last week, we took the week off for our good buddy Stone Cold to heal up. And Carla Speed McNeil was booked for last week. We have rescheduled her to the 22nd. So next week we will have Ben Harvey here, and then Carla Speed McNeil will be here. And that's a little bit of housekeeping for you. But tonight, guys, do we have a treat? We have a treat for you. Your boy Matt Haley's here. Yeah. Matt Haley is I called him another drawer of childhoods. Mike Bailey, you're gonna have to make some space over there in the childhood drawing department. Do you want to give a little tip of the cap for Matt, and then we'll bring him in, Mike?
Well, I guess Matt's been like me. He's been a journeyman. He's worked for like every major comic publisher, and he's even worked in games. And I think he's also worked on Star Trek, which I think it's funny. I don't think we've ever had another guest where we're 3 of us on screen have drawn the same subject. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting to compare notes.
Yeah, that is really cool. I hope we can lean into that a little bit. Well, I'm very excited to see this young man's face. We haven't seen him in a while, and we have a lot to catch up on and a lot to introduce him to you. So this is his first time on the podcast.
But not the first time you've interviewed him, because he was in Draw Magazine.
He was very much so in Draw Magazine, and I love that we always kind of have to connect the magazine with the new media, because it's all coming from the same place. So good for you on that, Mike. All right, guys, let me clear the decks. Matt Haley, prepare for rendering, and we are going to get you on the screen, guys. Welcome to Pencil, Matt Haley. Ping!
Wow!
Look, man, did you see it? It was like
I did. That was cool. That was very cool.
We just knitted you in real time. Look at that.
I've been beamed onto the grid.
Hey
fellas, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Matt. It's been a minute. We were in the green room just talking about when was the last time? Was the last time?
It's been a while. Yeah, actually
Phillips, an overcrowded Phillips Seafood in Baltimore. Remember that?
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. So, but Uncle Mikey, I have to say, Mike, you're the one I've known the longest of this
Yes.
group
Mhm.
because when I was at Dark Horse, Marilee was an editor, my longtime, ex or whatever, was an editor at Dark Horse, and she was editing you on something called Will to Power.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And that's where I first saw your work. That's why I first met you. Did you come into the offices?
No,
That's
I've
my
never
girlfriend.
been.
That's our Hellia.
Yeah, I've never been
Hot.
into
Well, then
the.
you and I must have met at a show where we had a Dark Horse booth and we were exhibiting or something because I met you back then
Mm.
and remembered your work and remembered how fast you were. And it was really annoying because I could do like a page a month. And every page you did was like beautiful and together and like great storytelling. And I'm just like trying to make this elbow like the most perfect elbow I'd ever drawn in my life. And thankfully I've mellowed since then. But that's how long I've known you. And J Dot, I think we've known each other most of the same length, a
Yeah.
little bit later. And Steve, I know, and I'm going to say it again, Steve, I apologize. I know you because you were doing a comic called Avant Garde. And if we don't do a comic together with the Avant Garde characters, I'm writing you out of my will. You're done. It's gone.
It's a very bad
So
comic. Everyone should read it.
it's a
over.
fantastic comic. Shut your mouth. I loved it. Get out of here. Oh, the reason I liked it is because when you were doing it, you were inking it digitally in Illustrator. Is that right?
Freehand is, you know,
Okay.
Adobe
potato, potato.
freehand?
Yeah,
Well,
Macromedia freehand at the time. Maybe
Macromedia freehand.
August.
Oh yeah.
That's right. And that's when I was just learning vector art. And I remember thinking, wow, there's all the possibilities. And then all I used it for was like drawing logos. So do much
Is
work.
that the one that traced out the traced stuff? Wasn't there one of
You
those programs?
could, and
You
Adobe
could.
had a dedicated product for that. I can't remember it offhand, but you could do it that way. I didn't do it that way. I did have like a document that was just full of hands. I think Wally would have approved that. I never had a.
I thought that would get further, that era of incorporating Illustrator and freehand into comics, and people kind of had like file folders of body parts and necks and stuff like that. That kind of went away.
Streamline. I remember that, and I remember people
Streamline.
being upset when it went away because you could put stuff in there and it would like digitally like outline the whole thing as a vector.
It softened things. It took it made estimations, made guesses, and it didn't always guess correctly.
Well, Matt, since we kind of have an advantage over the chat tonight because we all know each other.
We all know each other. Yeah.
maybe religiously in some ways.
Yeah.
We haven't done an origin story session in a while, so maybe for people who may not be super familiar with you, how'd you get started in the business? And then we can get to modern time.
I've come across that occasionally because my books are all still in print. They've all been reprinted, which is lovely. But when I get like a note or a comment saying, wow, I'm not familiar with your work, I'm trying to decide if I should be heard about that. And then I realize, no, I left comics, so it's okay. It's all right. Let's see. I'm years old, and I grew up in New Mexico in Albuquerque. And my pops was in radio, and he warned me, don't go into radio, don't become a jock or a news guy. And because a horrible way to make a living. And I thought, well, what else have I got? I always loved to draw and loved comics ever since I was a little kid. Like the Neil Adams, the treasury size reprints. That was the first thing right there. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And once somebody told me, people get paid to do those, I thought, oh, this is fantastic. So that was my goal. All through school, all through high school. And by the time I was about 18, I was not fast, but I was sufficiently sort of publishable, like on the indie level. And that was my goal, was just to do comics. So I went to college. I went to Eastern New Mexico University in Portales, New Mexico, in the middle of effing nowhere. Great school. It's where I met the inker whom I was proud to work with for a lot of years, Tom Simmons. Tom was from Artesia. We met in Portales and then ended up working together for years at Dark Horse, DC. I don't recall if we worked together at Marvel or not. So we were putting samples together. And I remember that I think we went to like Lubbock, Texas, because it was a place that had a mall. I mean, there literally was nothing where I went to school. And he picked up, he was a big comics nerd, and that's what he wanted to do was be an inker, and turned into a fantastic inker, steady hand, just incredible. And he had a copy of the Comics Buyer's Guide. And this would have been, should I say what year? Is that going to age me?
No, go.
1990.
Yeah.
And he said, there's a convention coming up in San Diego. And instead of mailing our samples in, we should just go there because that's where the editors are and maybe they'll hire us. And we're sitting in this like rattle trap cardboard shack we lived in Portales. He was working at Domino's and I was a jock at the number one radio station in Roosevelt County. It was also the only radio station in Roosevelt County. And I was working graveyards just because my dad had been in radio and it was easy to go get a job.
Mhm.
We thought, well, why don't we do something really smart? Let's quit our jobs, close out our apartment, throw all of our stuff into your truck, and let's just, I don't know, drive to San Diego. And this was, I think, the last year they had the con in the old convention center, right as they were building what is now where San Diego happens.
Wow.
We're like, 19 years
Yeah.
old, and we're
Yeah.
standing in line, and we've got our giant portfolio. And I think we had thought, because like the Batman movie had come out and everybody was talking about Batman and everybody, I'm sure we thought everybody was probably doing Batman samples. And we thought, well, why don't we find a comic where maybe the art isn't so great? And I don't want to put anybody out of a job, but maybe if we do better than those cats, well, maybe they'll hire us. So I picked Star Trek: The Next Generation. And I shouldn't have. I felt so bad because those cats worked so hard and trying to get the likenesses right and the sets right and do it on a schedule. I didn't know about any of that. I just thought,
Right.
well, they suck. Maybe I could do better. So we stayed up for a few weeks and got some samples done, threw our stuff in the truck and had nowhere to live when we were done and drove across the burning desert to San Diego. I don't think we even had a place to stay. I don't remember where we might have slept in his truck. I actually can't remember. Got in, and I think the first pro I met was Stan Sakai, who was a gem of a human being. Second cat I met was Steve Rude, who is a gem of a human being if you catch him on the right day, and one of the gods of art. So he and Jay and I have since become friends. And we were just showing our samples around, like, what do we do? And I think the first critique we got was from Diana Schutz. She and Bob Schreck had just gone to Dark Horse. I wish he was here, because she immediately starts yelling at us, going, "Why are you showing me?" We just pulled the boards out and like, here they are. Here's our samples. We didn't know what to do. We had no idea. We were lucky that the only reason we knew to do comic art on illustration board was because of the Marvel tryout book. We had no clue.
Oh yeah.
And at least we'd come across that. Otherwise, we might have done them on like notebook paper. I mean, hell no, we didn't know. And she's not screaming. She's yelling at us, going, "I've had a long day, and I've got to sit here and look at this crappy. We don't even publish Star Trek, and why are you showing me the full size pages?" And so we kind of slink off. And so we're dejected because this was our first experience. Going, well, I guess no one's going to hire us. So I'm kind of walking around, and I end up at this cat named Greg Baisden. I want to say he worked for Eclipse. I can't recall. Talking to him and showing him the samples, and we're sort of sufficiently terrified of like, do we even want to do this? He's looking at my samples, and I think I was talking about how much I hated the Star Trek books at the time. They don't get the ships right. They don't get everything. The uniforms and the likenesses are awful. And Greg's kind of just going, nice, okay. And I pause for a breath, and he goes, "That's really interesting. What do you think, Dale?" And I turn around, and there's who's no longer with us, sadly, who became a close friend of mine in later years, Dale Crane, who at the time was DC's art director. And they were publishing the Star Trek books. And bang, there's the DC bullet on his badge. And I just wanted to crawl under the floor. So I start humming, kind of backpedaling. Dale says, No, that's very interesting. I tell me more. So I sort of half-heartedly start talking about what they should be doing. He goes, "Well, you got any samples?" So I pull the giant pages out. And he was really cool. Dale was the first pro I met who said, "Well, here's what you're doing right." Started with that. Here's what you did wrong. And here's where you can improve it. I mean, like panel by panel. He says, "Why don't you go away now?" And also, by the way, don't letter your comic samples. You're not a letterer. Don't do that. We have pros for that. We did the whole kit and caboodle. And so then he says, "Why don't you go away and do some more samples?" And with that knowledge, then we left and had nowhere to live. So we ended up we drove back to Tucumcari, New Mexico, where a mutual friend of Tommy's and mine, Jeff Wilson, was the town chiropractor. And he had a place to live. He had been friends with Tommy since forever. And he says, "Well, tell you what, you guys can live with me rent free. We're not going to live like kings, but as long as you're working on your comic samples from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., you can live with me rent free until you get a gig. We're like, oh, thank God.
Wow.
And we were all friends. We had a great time, although it was, two can carry. So we did a second set of samples and then worked on some other stuff, worked on a science fiction short story, which I'll talk about later, which is finally actually getting printed. I can't believe it.
Wow.
Mailed them off. Didn't have a phone at Jeff's house. I think we gave the return address as his office. So we're just sitting there, and we're both long-haired, heavy metal meatheads, listening to Megadeth and rocking out. Jeff comes peeling into the driveway in his car from work. Well, that was the phone number we'd given to DC to call us if you wanted to talk to us. We didn't expect anything. He comes in and he's trying to be cool and says, so I got a call from a Bob Greenberg today. And we're staring at each other going, who are you talking about? And I started thinking of Bob Greenberg. Greenberger? Yeah, I think that was it, from New York. And I said, you mean the editor of the Star Trek comics called you? He goes, yeah, he wants to talk to you guys in the morning. And Tommy and I go, well, they don't call you unless they want to hire you. Woohoo! So we promptly got thrashed, didn't sleep. I think I got up in the middle of the night and bumped into a wall in the dark and almost broke my nose. So like 6 a.m. we got to be at Jeff's office because 9 a.m. New York is when Bob calls.
Right.
We get on the phone and Jeff's on the extension kind of doing this, listening to me and Tommy talking to Bob. I have no idea what to do. I don't know how this works. The only job I ever had was in radio. And I thought, well, he's a boss. So I'm like, well, hello, Mr. Greenberger. And Bob's like, please, I work for a living. Call me Bob. We have our conversation. He says, I like what you did. Do you guys come as a package deal? And Tom and I look at each other and we don't know who he's talking about. And he goes, Matt, I really like your pencils. You're really good with likenesses and you handle the uniforms, you handle the ships. I want to give you a gig. Tommy, I don't think your inks are quite up to snuff. And what I wanted to say was well, no, we are a package deal. We're trying to do this together. And Tommy's going, no, just take it. Just take it, whatever it is. All right. So he offered me, this is back when companies did tryout. They would pay you for tryout pages.
Oh, yeah.
And he paid, I'm assuming they don't do that. Haven't done that in a long time. And he paid me the princely sum of $65 a page, and I was over the moon. Oh my God, I'm getting paid to draw comics. I can't believe this. Sends me a script, and he was trying me out for a 4-issue Star Trek, the original series thing they were going to do. And classic Trek, that's my jam. Couldn't believe it. Well, he said, and you got to get it in a week. And I want to say it was 6 pages. So I blew the deadline by 1 day. And was 18-hour days and just trying to make it the most, it's like when you're first doing samples, trying to make the most beautiful thing you can. But I had no concept of a deadline, no idea.
Right.
And the night before, it was due, and then I was going to have to fax him the pencils the next day. I'm crying and freaking out. My career's over, just losing my mind. Total stress monster. Turn him in. So he says, well, the licensor likes it. These look good, but I'm a little worried about the deadline. So I'm going to give you a 54-page Next Generation annual. And you've got, I want to say he gave me 10 weeks. I blew the deadline by 4 months. I mean, I wrecked it, man. I was just well, I've got this job now and things are great. No one had ever talked to me about, you need to get the pages in on a regular basis because then they'll pay you and they'll send you checks. I had no clue. So months go by and I'm slowly getting them done, and I guess they look good for reasons I'll get into in a minute. But I was avoiding his phone calls and making Tommy answer the phone, and I did everything wrong. So I finally get it done, turned in, and then I got paid, but then I just don't hear anything. I'm assuming, okay, well, that was it, and I better go look for a radio job. And then a couple months later, I get a phone call from Bob, and he says, well, it's been solicited and it's coming out, and everybody at the office really likes it, and the licensors really like it. I think I had a couple pages come back because the actors had likeness approval at the time. And as we discussed a minute ago, Patrick Stewart has kind of a funny shaped head, and I had a little difficulty getting that right. And LeVar Burton sent pages back because he thought I made his lips too big. And I said, well, you guys didn't really send me any reference. I have to sit and watch the show. And I'm sorry, he has, larger lips than I do. And I was just trying to match his likeness. It didn't occur to me that, well, the actors want you to draw them the way they think they look. None of this was explained to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I get done, and the book's about to come out. I go to the 1991 San Diego con, which I want to say was the first con at the actual like nice convention center where it is now, and was showing the pencils around, just trying to figure out how to get other gigs. But because it was licensed work, that's kind of all that I was getting. I got offered a Tarzan comic from a Danish publisher called Egmont.
Egmont. Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that right? Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Did that with Laverne Kinzierski, who I want to say wrote it and colored it, did a brilliant job. And then Richard Howell and Steve Englehart were doing something called Claypool
Yeah.
Comics. Okay. And so I did one of their flagship titles, Phantom of Fear City. And it was me and Amanda Connor and somebody else. And they're actually paying like real rates, which was amazing. So then suddenly I'm like, okay, I'm working in comics. This is great. But boy, I tell you, learning. This is back in the days where you had to ship the pages off via FedEx and faxes, like we talked about. Learning how to hit a deadline and do the kind of art that I was happy with. It took a while. It took a long time. So I'm amazed I did as many comics as I did. So let's see.
I lo-
Did
oh,
Go ahead.
hold on, Matt. I gotta say, I love this origin story. I love it.
Is it too much?
No, it's amazing. And also, one thing I just want to kind of, not that you need any flavored text here, but I love that everybody has some sort of like pivot point or a catalyst moment, or a, hey, let's leave our apartment and just drive with no plan.
We just
to
like being in a band. It was a lot like being in a band where you go, you know what, fuck it, let's just go to the whiskey and just show up on their doorstep and say, hi, can we play for you? And it was just, that was that same kind of thing. I couldn't believe that I got hired. The really funny thing is that because we didn't really have a place to live after going and doing this, I don't have a college degree. I quit college, for which my mom always kind of gave me grief about. And lived in Tucumcari, and then like the week after we got hired to do the samples, Jeff got fired and had to pack up and move back to Artesia. And we're like, well, what do we do? So we had to drive back to Albuquerque. Had to show up on my dad's doorstep. Hi, I'm back from college. I do have a job, but can my college roommate live here too? And we stayed with my folks for a couple months, got some money, and then went and got an apartment. So while I was doing that, my pops was the morning news anchor on the news talk station in Albuquerque, 77 KOB, and had been forever. So everyone in New Mexico knew my dad. And so he starts talking about, well, my son's, you know how parents are like, he basically invented Star Trek and he's doing it on the morning news while I'm sitting on the floor with a lap board because I didn't know what an art table was. I didn't know about any of this stuff. While my mom is standing in the doorway going, you're going to need to get serious about your life. It's like, Mom, I'm getting paid. I'm on the phone with these guys in New York. Well, you just, McDonald's is hiring. Mom, here's my first paycheck. I'm moving out in a couple of weeks. And it wasn't a part of her world.
Right.
She finally got it. Ages later, when I had been working for Stan Lee for years, and I got her to get her and my dad a photo with Stan. And she turns to my dad and goes, oh, he does this for a living. Okay. So that's just, some people just don't get it. So let's see.
You were at the
Go ahead.
1990 Comic-Con, and
yes,
and you know where to live with wrong size samples, letters.
Yes.
The next year you're back there with your pencil pages of Star Trek.
Yes, in just like the Xerox form. Yeah, I know. Isn't that wild? It's only because I picked. Oh, there's Creighton. Oh my God, I've known Creighton for decades. We went to school together. Good Lord. Because I was telling everybody in school, I'm going to go be a comic book artist.
Yeah.
So then, I went back to my, 10-year high school reunion. Was the only one I've ever been to. And I had already been in comics for almost a decade. And people were buying my books. And I was going, wow, you did it. And to me, I was like, well, yeah, I said I was going to. Why is that an issue? I didn't understand it,
Yeah.
And my dad, of course, who since passed on, was very proud of me. But I remember him saying, I love that you're doing what you want to do with your life, son. But have you ever thought about law school? And he had this whole plan for my life where I was going to become a lawyer, run for judge, and then run for the Senate. He had it all mapped out because he was a political wonk and a news radio guy. And I was like, yeah, but Pops, I still don't know how to tie a tie. Why don't I stick with comic books?
I think it's a lot more. That reaction was very common because comics were not mainstream back in 1990.
That's right.
Now everybody knows Stan and everybody knows Marvel
Oh, yeah.
and everybody knows it. So it's not, if someone goes, I'm going to work for Marvel, people go, oh, Marvel, okay.
They get it.
You
Yeah,
know, they understand.
that's
They
right.
understand it. You know, but
That's
yeah,
right.
in
Yeah.
1990, there were not, most colleges did not have graphic novel programs. Comics was not looked at as comic strips. The comic books were not looked at as being like you said, almost like a legit thing, right? Most people, when I was younger, if you said you did comics, they assumed comic strips by default.
Yes, I got a lot of that for many years after. Yep.
You know, and the other thing that I think is really interesting about doing likeness stuff is that at that time, people don't realize how hard it was to, because there was no internet. Like now, you could go type in, you could go take screen captures of every episode,
100%.
every angle of the person, 3/4 back of the head, him yelling. I remember I did that one issue of Star Trek, and that was before the internet.
So you went through it.
Yeah, so I had like Starlog, and they sent you like some really crappy, reference.
Well, like
it's never reference that you need. It's never reference that you need from the angle that you need for the person in that panel.
Yeah, and that was my experience on Star Trek, and with every single license thing I've done. And unfortunately, I've not done too many, thank goodness. But back then, as I said earlier, the Paramount sent me the writer's guide and some headshots, and went, okay, do 54 pages of Next Gen. So I had to sit there and watch the show, and then go buy issues of Starlog and stuff like that. So yeah, Mike, you and I have been through the fire. It's the same experience, man.
Can I throw? I'm sorry, Mike. Finish.
I was going to say the other thing is that they generally also write stuff in the comic that they don't do in the show.
That's right.
So you have to draw characters doing things that you don't see them doing on the show, right?
That's right. That's right. I got lucky. Most of what I did, they were just sitting down and pressing buttons. Like I got lucky with that one. But there's a funny story about John Frakes we'll talk about later that's relevant.
But yeah, and then I remember Patrick Stewart was very particular about the point on his head.
That's right.
Head has this like his little point, and so if you didn't get the point,
no one understood what I went through until you and I get it, man.
Because he kind of has like a
little bit. It's shaped like a xenomorph. I'm sorry, it is. It's sort of shaped like the alien. I'm sorry, Sir Patrick.
So did he want you to like smooth it out or make it?
No, he wanted you to make sure that you had that point.
Right.
Yes, and it's crucial. Yeah, if you don't do it, it looks funny. Yeah.
If
so
you
he
just
sent
draw
pages
like a
back to
round
me.
head, like a Charlie Brown head.
Yeah, I don't think they've got likeness approval anymore, but back then they would all just sit around during breaks and have to go through the pages and circle which ones they didn't like. And so I had pages sent back by Patrick Stewart and LeVar Burton, and did the best I could to, at least only had one round. Parker Posey, when I did a Superman thing, sent hers back 5 times.
Wow.
But she ended up buying a big piece of art for me, so it all worked out. I haven't done a ton of licensed stuff, and I'm not a fan.
Yeah,
but
there's a friend of Ricardo Villagrán who worked on Star Trek for years, but he was working on the original stuff.
Yeah,
and Tom Sutton laid that stuff out.
That's right, and everybody looked like their faces were dirty because he was shading in all of the lighting sources and like, you're working too hard. He did a good job, but having to do that every month.
Yeah,
I couldn't
but
do it.
Ricardo was one of those guys who was also really good at likenesses. So.
Oh yeah.
If you're good at a likeness,
yeah,
you understand. Okay, what makes Kirk look like Kirk? Or Spock was easier to draw than Kirk because
Kirk had no lips,
and he's very.
Shatner had no lips. There were no landmarks on his face.
Yeah. He's the softest face in the world. It's like just a pretty man.
Now there's a I don't mean to digress, but there's a comic out right now, a Trek comic called The Last Starship. And all I know is the art I've seen, particularly the covers, they are nailing his likeness. And I'm so jealous because when I did those very first samples, there's Tommy. He does. And so if you don't do it right, if it's just a little bit off, it just looks like some generic, clothing model. But whoever's doing their art on the last Starship is just nailing it, doing a fantastic job. It is easier these days. There is the internet. And so we had it, we had it old school. Where like there was a couple of points where I had some next gen episodes taped on VHS, which probably none of your viewers know what that is, and had a big TV. It took a piece of tracing paper, just okay, can I get this right? So yeah, it's much easier these days.
Mhm.
We did it old school, X-Acto knives and whiteout. Yeah,
It's our first question from our buddy Jeff Yin. Jeff said, Matt, did you ever draw the Riker maneuver?
I did not draw the Riker maneuver, but I saw John. That's my man. Two Takes Frakes. I saw him do it on set when I was shadowing him, learning to be a TV director. And he does it because he injured his back, I think. It was hard for him to actually, even back then, sit down in a chair properly. And he was so tall in the backs of the chairs, so he just did it. Also, I think the uniforms like bound up a little bit, but I saw him do it on set, and he got like laughs from the crew or watching him do it. That's just how he does it,
That's
But no, I didn't get to draw
it. So one thing I was going to kind of add as you were kind of tightening up the end of your origin story is how when you said, well, this is what I was going to do, right? And that kind of just like blows a lot of like civilians' minds to have such a strong function to do something and not understand that people have no belief system in you.
Yeah.
Right?
I ran into that a lot where people I know people to this day who are in our age cohort who say, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. That was just never a question for me. The one question was what I wanted to do was film and TV. But I lived in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. And at the time I had heard that LA was like on fire and there were gangs that were going to kill you. So I'm like, well, like what I should have done is just move to LA. But woulda, coulda, should, I have no idea what would have happened. My life unfolded the way it was supposed to. And comics was something I could afford. I loved comics. I was immersed in comics, but I couldn't afford a camera. I could afford, let's just say I grew up extremely, not even lower middle class. It was, poor. But my pops would come home with stacks of butcher paper or printer paper. And well, I got pens, I got markers. Okay, I can do this. My mother was a portrait artist and a very good one. And so although she never taught me anything, there was art around. And so I would look at like Neil Adams and go, wow, well, the stuff that he's drawing, it sort of looks like the portraits my mom's doing. That's what comics can look like. That's incredible. So, but it really was a question of like, well, I can afford these materials.
Yeah.
And so I thought, all right, well, they'll pay me to do comics and maybe someday I'll get to do the other stuff. But the more I did comics, the more I loved them. The more I loved the art form, the more I loved the pictorial storytelling. And when I discovered independent comics in like, 84, 85 was like the summer of black and white comics. I was just like, you mean you can do like adult comics about cool stuff with naked women? I'm in, sold, So comics was very much when I decided that's what I was going to do. I think I told my pops when I was 5 or 6, like, Pops, I'm going to be a comic book artist. And he said, well, be the best one you can be. And that was that. I just sort of didn't question it. So yeah, when I met folks, like when I went back for my one high school reunion, people going, I don't know what I want to do, and I can't believe you're doing this. It literally did not register with me. Like, what do you mean? I said I was going to do it. Why, now I got stupendously lucky and had a really good partner in Tommy and did one of the few smart things I've ever done in my life is pick the comic and like sneak in through the back door. Don't go try and doing Batman because it's a little harder to judge that stuff. I was up against people like Brian Stelfreeze, who was a god, and folks like that. And I thought, well, let me just sneak in and see if I can draw Captain Kirk really well. And, it worked out. But then it was a slog to stay employed again because of the aforementioned deadline issue.
Well, the other thing is that in the beginning of your career, you sort of get typecast because if you do Star Trek, then they go, oh, you're good at likenesses. You're good at licensed character. Well, I got this other licensed character thing, right? Which may not be what you want to do, but that's the industry probably still does to some degree. It's sort of
it's like being an actor. Yeah,
Yeah.
you get Grace Zabriskie used to talk about this. She said, well, I was in Twin Peaks and I played, Laura Palmer's mom, and then everybody was asking me to play a woman who smokes heavily and cries for 20 years. So I was able I was able to step outside that, fortunately, because of the Tarzan gig. It was technically licensed, but it wasn't based on any person. So it was just like drawing your regular old comic book. And I didn't realize that I would enjoy drawing chimpanzees, hitting each other. And so I did that. And then right on the heels of that, Rich Howell offered me this Phantom of Fear City monthly, which while it wasn't superheroes, it wasn't licensed. So I had to get good at drawing normal people talking to each other. So I think that's what saved me from having to I'm just a licensed comics guy. And then from there, Michael Urie, who is now a very dear friend of mine, saw Phantom of Fear City and was looking for someone to draw Ghost for Dark Horse because Adam Hughes was even slower than I was. And he was supposed to do it and he couldn't. So our styles were similar enough that I was, picking up his leftovers and ended up as Dark Horse's artist in residence for a couple of years at an office right across the street. Still couldn't hit a deadline, even though I knew my editors could come right across the street. Bang, bang, bang. Where the hell are your pages? So yeah, I was able to step around the license thing. I did a couple other license projects later in my career because I was good at it and it was a gig. But yeah, I didn't do very many because I just didn't want to do it.
Matt, one thing that I've always loved about how illustrative your style. I always loved it about your work. Where did you have a lot of early influences? But it also seems to me like you're kind of like a sponge. Like you can look at something and go, okay, I got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, which is also a superpower. But was there anything really specific you were kind of like locking in on in your early
You mean like
career?
influences?
Yeah.
Oh
Things that
man,
really
Neil
stood out to you.
Adams.
Yeah. Mhm.
The early Neil. As a kid, it was Neil Adams, Gil Kane. Let me think. I'm just thinking of the artists that I was aware of and knew when I was a kid. Mike Grell,
Mm,
who a lot of artists that had that sort of Neil Adams-ish kind of thing.
yeah.
And then I think the thing that really broke my brain was Walt Simonson's Manhunter stories, which are like the greatest. I cannot wait to get his artist edition because I think it's got all the original art scans in there because he never sells his art, at least that I'm aware of. And Batman's got the 30-foot long cape and the big tall ears, but it was different enough from Neil's that I started to see the design, the differences in artists. But the short answer is that I liked artists who had a command of the human figure. Gil Kane could just draw here's where all the muscles go. Neil could do that. A lot of those cats could do that. I'm trying to think. Jim Aparo, I loved Jim Aparo Batman. John Senior Spider-Man, you can't beat. Dave Cockrum, early Dave Cockrum X-Men stuff, also a real
Mm,
master of storytelling, dynamic storytelling. He always put way too much hatching on women's faces, but that's the only complaint I got about Dave's work. God rest him, he was a genius. So a lot of it were people that I was just seeing in monthly comic books, but it was also tempered by the fact my mom was a portrait artist. So she was heavy into Lion Decker and let me think, who else was she into? Some magazine illustrators from the 40s and 50s, like Al Dorn. I think she was heavy into Bernie Fuchs. And so I didn't know really who they were, but as I grew up later and got into the business, I started recognizing a lot of those illustrators from the 40s and 50s into the 60s. So it was kind of a combination of those. As a kid, it was just like, well, can I make my comic drawings look as real as possible? Because those were the artists that I gravitated toward. I didn't like the Bigfoot stuff, didn't understand it until many years later. I discovered Asterix, which is brilliant, incredible storytelling. And then I think the scales finally fell off my eyes when I discovered Mobius, because all my dad cared about in life was Westerns. And I was looking for a Christmas gift for him, and I found some folio of Lieutenant Blueberry. And I was just going to give it to him, like, oh, here's a Western comic. I did not know what I had picked up. I didn't know it was from Europe, and I didn't know it was the greatest comic artist who ever existed. And when I found out later how fast he was, I wanted to kill myself. I just couldn't believe like he could do this kind. You can take Lieutenant Blueberry and you could use it as reference to go make a Western film, and to know that he was just banging them out, like, okay, never mind. So I sat there, stayed up all night looking at this, going, who is this? What am I looking at? So it was a confluence of stuff, but it was usually people who were really good at expressive phases. So when I get into the business, it was like, looking at Kevin McGuire stuff and looking at Adam's stuff and going, well, that's the stuff that I do, and that's where I want to be. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, yeah, it does. It does very well.
Okay.
And this might be a good time to pull up some images. How do you feel about that, Matt?
Uh-oh, yeah.
All right, cool. All right,
We'll see
so
if I survive here.
yeah,
All the
uh,
good stuff's on my Instagram.
yeah, I'm going to put up, and we've been sharing your Insta with the chat, but we're going to put up a little slideshow, and you can talk through things,
Oh
or we can
boy.
just keep talking. You
Yeah,
know,
let's talk about this for a second. So this is I can't believe Morgan's gone, man. Morgan and I became friends doing this. And I'll tell you a quick story about young Morgan. So I don't actually recall how I got this gig. Oh, no, I do. So I was already doing work for Stan Lee, and this is after he'd left Marvel. We never got to do anything at Marvel. He had his own dog and pony show, and they were doing a reality show called Stan Lee's Who Wants to Be a Superhero.
I remember that. Yeah.
mhm,
Okay, so I'll try to make this really quick. So I was using Craigslist to get gigs back when Craigslist was worth using. And they had posted a casting notice for the pilot for Who Wants to Be a Superhero. And I had an RSS feed set up and it came up on my feed and it went, oh, wow, okay. And I'm not sure they mentioned Stan's name, but I just sent them a note and said, look, I know you're not supposed to send stuff about that's not related to the ad, but if you're doing a show about comics, you might need a comic artist. Here I am, let's go. An
right.
hour later, I get a panicked phone call from the producers going, oh my God, how soon can you be down here? And I said, well, I'm in Portland. They're like, we'll buy you a plane ticket. So I got a gig on the pilot, came down here. I said, I'm in LA now for a couple weeks, did all the art, met Stan, did the whole thing. And then we did 2 seasons. And so since that project, while Stan was with us, his office would call me when they had something they thought I was suitable for. And so this was one of them. Uh, Morgan, I got to know because my work was all in post. I did this poster, went through numerous revisions, and then in the movie, I've got like 80 pieces of art.
Hmm.
Because when I was doing stuff for Stan, a lot of it was there'd be a frozen image of video, and I would have to turn that into a comic book illustration, and they would wipe from the video to my illustration. Um, this left a bad taste in my mouth forever working with what do they call warrior poets again, because I almost had to sue them to get paid, which was
Mm,
awesome. But it wasn't Morgan's fault. God rest him. They took my signature off of the poster, and I didn't have a credit in the film when I was at the premiere with my date.
of
And
course.
I went up to him and I said, "Hey, Morgan, that was in my contract. You mind telling?" Hamana, hamana, hamana. But he made it right. He made
Mm.
sure for the Blu-ray release, my signature was back on the poster. That was in the credits, and he sent me 3 bottles of very expensive scotch. And we stayed in touch ever since until he passed. And so I got nothing bad to say about Morgan. God bless him.
That's
I
fantastic.
still can't believe he's gone.
That's fantastic.
So I don't know if anybody saw this movie, but it was fun to work on. This is something called Punchline that a buddy of mine publishes, and I just really liked it, so I included it in the batch I sent you. I liked her design, and I thought it was one of my better covers.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah.
Matt, how do you feel about cover work versus interiors? Because that's always an ongoing conversation in comicdom these days.
Well, when I was at DC, I actually was a cover artist in a couple of titles I wasn't working on. First cover gig I got was something called Primal Force,
Mm,
which was like Red Tornado, a bunch of like third and fourth stringers, Jack O' Lantern, Claw. I honestly can't remember, but I remember I got to do the covers. It was very early in my career at DC. I had no idea who these characters were except for Red Tornado, and so I just kind of got to go hog wild. I was a cover artist on Firestorm for a while, Wonder Woman, Nightwing,
mhm,
Superman or Action Comics for a minute, and something else. And so I love them because I am a storyteller by trade, but I do love getting to do just a one-off illustration. But I try to make sure, depending on what the client asks for, to tell some kind of a story. But I'll admit when I do covers, I probably noodle them a little more than I should because it is the thing that people are seeing that hopefully makes them buy the magazine.
And
mm,
I
DC
love
was
doing
like that.
covers.
They did have like cover artists,
Yeah.
that I don't know if they do that as much now. I guess certain guys are just like Adam,
Yeah.
just do
Yeah.
covers, But like Gil Kane back in the day, he was like doing covers for everybody. That was his
Oh
main,
yeah.
you know.
Oh yeah. No, I did them just because, I was making a living and somebody called and said we'd like some covers for Wonder Woman. And I'm like, okay. And I just tried to do the best job that I could. So That was really the only place where I was. No, I never did Dark Stars. Never drew Dark Stars once. Sorry, Tom. I wish I had. I love the design, but never touched Dark Stars or Dark Hawk. Never got to draw him either. That was Mikey.
Ah,
All right, let's see what else you got on here.
Okay, well, this is an example of going back to the licensed work. I don't recall how I got this. I did a bunch of work on that Justice League movie. This was another example of the client not sending me the reference I needed. I had to then look at how complicated their outfits are, and I had to fight just to get someone at Warner Brothers, and I was working for friggin' Warner Brothers. I'm not going to leak this stuff on the internet. They
Right.
finally sent me a heavily redacted PDF of the costumes with my name in great big black letters all over the images, so it was next to useless. But I did a bunch of this kind of stuff that was like tie-ins. There was like a Mercedes thing, there was Gillette. But then I started getting these weird phone calls. I had a really good relationship with Warner Special Projects with Mike McAllister. And he would call me and say, can you do a pencil layout that we're going to send out to mural artists all over the world
Hmm.
of the Justice League characters? Sure. Can you design a couple of plush versions that we may or may not make? Sure. So it sort of turned into like commercial art
Hmm.
kind of stuff. I hated drawing Cyborg. I hated drawing Flash. I hated drawing Aquaman. Those costumes make no sense.
I love Argyle Flash. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
I thought Batfleck was pretty good. He made a pretty
Yeah.
good Batman.
Yeah.
Made a great Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And I forget who the person is playing Wonder Woman. She's a rather forgettable actor. I don't know who that is.
Gal Gadot.
Is that who that is?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm Linda Carter fan myself, and I finally got to draw her in Wonder Woman 77, which was just like, childhood dream come true.
That's so good.
So, but this is an example of like the commercial art stuff where I had done the comic stuff for long enough that when I got to do the commercial art stuff, I could kind of yes, I can do likenesses, but I can still try to make it feel like a comic. So that was a lot of my work.
Mm-hmm.
That's like what Neil Adams did. I mean, that was his thing, right? For
Yep.
DC for all those years. He was, and then I guess after him it was Garcia Lopez.
It was Garcia Lopez. Yeah, I didn't work for Camel, so I didn't have the money to start a studio. It was just me, but did a lot of that kind of work for many, and still do it for many years. This is a panel, probably one of my favorite panels I've ever drawn from Gen 13 Science Friction, which Tom Simmons, we just talked the other day. I thought he inked this book. He didn't. Aaron Lepresti inked it. Aaron and Tommy and I were all in a studio for a number of years. And I was just happy with the dynamism. I loved Gen 13, but I didn't do the image, hatchy balloon animal figures. I can't remember. Eric DeSantis was my editor. Eric and Scott Dunbier when he was at Wildstorm. They were both very patient with me and very sweet. And I'm again, as like with a lot of my editors, I'm surprised they still speak to me because I blew this deadline because I was working so hard. I just wanted it to be beautiful, but I just wasn't fast enough. So, but Tommy and I got to write this, and then Aaron inked it, did an incredible job. Aaron taught me a lot about spotting shading on figures. His trick, which you cats probably already know, is that you've penciled something. Instead of doing it on the back of the board, you just get a piece of tracing paper and get a Sharpie. Sharpie doesn't go through tracing paper, at least most tracing paper. So you can just hatch at it, put it under what you just did on a light box, and then you're done. So it was all these tricks of like, here's how you can get the page done this year, that kind of thing. So hats off to Aaron Lepresti, taught me a ton.
And I don't really talk too much about characters, but I remember when J. Scott Campbell was doing this, his style, so to speak, or whatever, like it's very elongated.
Very elongated. The funny thing about J. Scott, because we've been friendly for a number of years now, he got professional real quick, which is why he was able to do his career the way he's done it. His early stuff was kind of bloopy and didn't make any sense, but like him and Travis Charest, okay, whom I don't know. Charest, they both became artists like real quick. Jay Scott got really good in about 18 months. He really applied himself.
This is fantastic. I love that.
It's making me miss comics again. Doggone it. Thanks a lot.
Sorry, Matt Haley.
This is just a piece that I did that I ended up selling to a private collector because I had never drawn Aquaman or Black Manta and just thought I'd make a fun piece. I went a little crazy with the white paint splatter, but it looks cool, so that's all. And I did these just kind of for fun whenever I could find time, and was fortunate that people ended up buying them. So
Uh, and how this is maybe a technical question. How long does it kind of generally take you to kind of put a cover illustration through its paces? Like, do you
well,
have a
I'm gonna tell you something funny because I talk a lot now about how slow I was. A
Mhm,
few years ago, I started doing after the tech layoffs, and I was like, well, I better figure out how to make a living. My girlfriend Leah took me to a place here in LA called the Obscure Distillery, which is like an invite-only upscale. You go to wear really nice evening clothes,
mm,
speakeasy,
mhm,
and they wanted somebody on their stage drawing, and I started doing that, and it was like going back, like, although I didn't go to art school, it was like what I imagined going back to art school would be, because I'm sitting there. I've done it at conventions. We've all done it doing commissions in front of people and whatnot. But I got a whole audience of drunk people behind me with money. And so I can do a cover like this in about 4 hours. It used to take me a week because the pieces that I've been doing the past few years, each one takes about 90 minutes, and they're color illustrations, inked and the whole thing. And so only just in the past few years, I have gotten blindingly fast just because I'm doing it all the time. When I did this one, this probably took 3 days.
mm,
I could do this now in about 4 hours.
mhm,
And I
mhm.
just wish I'd been that fast when I was doing comics back in the day, man. I would have had a much better career. So
Do you
Well,
think
I
it's
just did.
confidence that causes you to work faster?
Yeah, yeah. Part of it is confidence because now I've been doing it for so long. And that's something that people told all of us when we were younger coming up. Although, Mike, you've always been blindingly fast. But I mean, when I was younger, it was like, well, you'll get fast as time goes along. And it did happen. Like one day I was just like, oh yeah, and I wasn't even looking at the board. Like I was like looking for something for my brain to do, like listening to talk radio or music, so that my hand could be left alone to get the work done. And I
mhm,
realized I wasn't even thinking about it. But that took
Mm.
about 15 years. So
mhm,
yeah,
yeah,
these days it's confidence. I can throw down a line. I had to teach myself to ink because I'm trained as a penciler,
yeah,
and I had to learn about inking, which is why this looks very over rendered and the black areas on the bodies are very precise because I was just sort of filling it in like when you're doing a coloring book. And it's my goal to get looser.
mhm,
I did a project with Steve Lieber at Marvel. It was an Iron Man something or other, and he taught me more on that one issue about why are you drawing all the leaves on a tree? Grab a brush, treat it
Mhm.
like paint. Well, I'd never painted. I'd never done any of that. So God bless
mhm,
Steve for holding my hand doing that stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of it's just been I've been doing it long enough now that I can just sit down and bang it out. But now the business is
mhm,
very different.
cool.
So, but I've
Um,
always loved this high contrast comic book style
mhm,
because it has such punch, it has such immediacy. And then going back and looking at Al Williamson stuff, Al's Secret Agent strips and the Star Wars stuff. I've got a bunch of folios sitting over here. And when I was doing uh, comics later in my career, I would just sit and look at Al's stuff. And like, well, how would Al handle this? I only
mhm,
met him at one time, but
mhm.
this kind of high contrast work and stuff that I'm never going to fall out of love with. I adore it.
Yeah,
And it suffers poor coloring better too.
Yep.
If you
Which
can't
is why
color
I
it
learned
yourself,
Photoshop. That's
yeah.
why I learned Photoshop so I could color my own work, man.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
So you would sell yourself as a cover artist, including doing the colors.
Yeah. Yes, actually, because I got heavy into Photoshop and real quickly, like this thing I did for Jiminy Christmas. I've just lost his name. Tom Akel at Rocket Ship. It was some Stan Lee thing, and I'd worked for Stan, and I wouldn't consider this one of my better pieces because I didn't have a lot of time to do it. But the only reason I know Photoshop and Illustrator and software packages like that is that when the comics market bottomed out at the end of the 90s, I had never had a real job. I had been doing comics for a decade. I'd never had to punch a clock. I'd never had to write a resume, none of that.
Mhm,
And my buddy David Hahn, who's a comics artist, does Serena. I actually have lost touch with him. I'm not sure what he's doing now. He and I go back to Albuquerque. And he said, well, I have a job at this service bureau doing technical illustration. Why don't you come with me? We'll do an interview. And I'm sitting there like, all right, I was drawing Batgirl. Why am I sitting here? But there was just no work. And I only worked there for 6 months because the company closed and we all got laid off. But during that time, it was like getting paid to learn Photoshop and Illustrator. And I learned them at the same time by one of the greatest artists in vector art in the world, Russell Wyant. His first gig as a vector artist was the MGM logo, and he had to make it look like a photo, but it's a vector illustration. He's a god of vector. So I got very lucky that I got trained at this horrible job by this absolute genius. And so I don't know that I'm an expert in those software packages, but I can use them to do what I need to do. So yeah, coloring this, I mean, the coloring took like an hour because I just needed to get it done.
Mhm.
But one of the reasons why it was nice to then like go back into comics and then go into video games and film and whatnot was like I came out with like I can sit and draw with a ballpoint pen and I can do a finished publishable illustration, or I can sit and color it and do it digitally and do it that way. So it made me really competitive. So while I hated it at the time, I'm grateful I had that experience.
Mhm.
It was the only 9 to 5 gig I've ever had in my life, man. But it was like getting paid to go to school, so it was cool.
Yeah,
This is for something. I'm sorry.
If you get paid to learn,
Yeah.
that's like the sort of the best of both worlds. And as they upgrade stuff, and you get paid to upgrade.
Yeah, but I'm just grateful that I got to get into comics when I did, because I've still got those paper and pencil and pen skills. So all of this nonsense around large language models doing art, I hesitate to call it AI because it ain't intelligent.
Mhm.
The kids are, well, I'll just hit a button, I'll just do AI. I'm like, cool, what if the power goes out? What if you don't have access to that stuff? Can you sit down with a ballpoint pen and a piece of paper, do an illustration? Well, I don't have to. My niece has been having people tell her that her illustrations, well, that's just pencil slop. These are just people who are jealous that they didn't sit down and try to do something with their lives and learn
Pencil
something,
slop?
learn an art. Pencil slop, that's a new one. Yeah, like, oh yeah, so she sat down for a day and made a piece of art and you hit a button. What they do is not special. What we do is special. Now, I believe anyone can do it if they apply themselves. But if there's one thing people hate these days, it's labor, you know? So the point in that whole diatribe is that I'm glad I got to start in comics when I did, because that whole experience was like an art school. I had to, as pencilers, we got to learn how to draw everything. And then when you get into the digital space, you can finish it. So, but I don't need Photoshop. I can sit down and kind of do it on my own, but I'm glad I learned it. So
Tristan says that's pretty cool, man.
thank you, Tristan. Yeah.
I agree.
I hate to sound negative about what's going on with art these days, because I'm a purist and I believe that art should be created by human beings. But you'll hear a lot of people talk. I don't know, I'm going on my rant, but people talk about this AI stuff and go, "Well, it's democratizing art. You guys were gatekeepers of art." Like, no, no, we weren't. You sit down and you draw. You know, but I think there were a lot of people who wanted to do comic art who just maybe didn't have the juice, or had what it took, or didn't apply themselves. The last time I ever gave a portfolio review, it's decades ago, was a guy who came up to me at a show when I was still doing comics regularly with his portfolio and said, "Okay, what do you think?" And what they want you to say is, "Well, yeah, you're hireable, and let me introduce you to somebody over here, and you'll get a job." And he was probably in his mid 40s, and his art was. Um, the level of like a 6-year-old. And I thought maybe he was showing me his kid's art. And he wanted me to say, "Yes, you are the best it's ever been. And oh my God, I can't believe I met you." And when I told him, "Look, this is not publishable. There's no way." And I held up a comic, and it wasn't my comic. I wasn't comparing his art to mine, going, "Do you think these look the same?" And he said, "Yes." And when I told him, "Look, I'm sorry, you're going to get your heart broken," he threatened to punch my lights out. And I thought, I'm just not going to crush people's dreams anymore. So I quit doing portfolio reviews.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that most people, if they sit down and apply themselves, can do art. Whether it's publishable or not, well, that's a separate conversation. So I'm glad that, like my nieces and younger people that I have met at seminars and whatnot, are getting back to just sitting down and doing regular old art with pens and pencils. Because you know what? It's fun. You get to create something that no one's ever seen before. With this AI stuff, it's remixing stuff that we've already seen a million times. So who cares? Anyway, that's my rant. I apologize.
No, it's all good. It's all good. It's very delicate, and I'm glad that we can always touch on it. Well, let you touch on this, Matt Haley. Tell us about this piece.
I'm trying to remember. Okay. I did this with Tommy as a pitch piece. We had sold several graphic novels to DC. We had done Tangent Joker with Dan Jurgens. We had done the Elseworld's Finest, Supergirl and Batgirl, which he and I came up with. which was a blast and sold really well, and it's been reprinted. It was like my magnum opus at DC. And Tommy and I started going, we need to get to Marvel, because the Marvel characters are the ones that I grew up with, and the X-Men, of course. When I was in high school, I wasn't going to the comic shop. I was subscribing. They were sending that stuff to my house. That's how crazed I was for this.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
so I just did it because we had a story. We had a 4-issue miniseries we were pitching. The idea was we thought we'd found a hole in X-Men continuity where some months had gone by and there had been no stories during those months. And we thought, well, let's create a story to fill in that slot in that. And it was like from the an 80s story about what would it actually be like if Professor Xavier identified you as a mutant and said, you're an X-Men now, and just show the day-to-day of like going through what it's like. And then it completely ruins your life because you're having to fight evil mutants all the time. We had a guy who was not a teenager. He was a young adult and he was married and had a kid.
Mm.
And where you see Cyclops in the original pitch art, which I can't find, it was this guy, this character that we had slotted in. But I had talked to Chris Claremont and he said, it sounds like a great idea. Why don't you pitch it? I don't recall if he was going to write it or not. Talked to Mark Waid briefly. And so I talked to a couple of folks who were at Marvel, said, this sounds like a great idea. You should pitch it. But I don't recall why it didn't happen. But I was so happy with the illustration that I changed it. And I think it ended up in like a Dave Cockrum tribute book
Mhm.
or something like that. But really, it was just like, I just really wanted to draw the damn X-Men. I was up for an X-Men gig when Bob Greenberger was at Marvel for a year, but Dan DiDio, we're going to be real kind about this, when he was at DC, told Marvel I was under an exclusive. I was not. And I got to see Dan a couple years ago and tell him to his face what I thought about that in the nicest way possible. And of
Mhm.
course, when people do that to you, they just shrug and go, yeah, whatever, who cares? So cost me an X gig. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. But nobody's fault. What are you going to do?
That's so comics.
I didn't know.
That's so
He did it
comics.
to me 3 times. So, Dan
Oh.
should stay on his side of the world, I think.
Yeah, not to
Since I'm
get
not in
too,
the business, I can speak freely about this
yeah,
stuff. You know what I mean? It's not
yeah,
going to
yeah.
cost me a gig. Who cares?
Well, I mean, not to get too deep into that, but it's just like everybody. There's like kind of like an underbelly of just, I guess, the politics of comics, right? It's
Which I wasn't
beyond,
aware of. Yeah.
right. It's beyond just you drew your shit and you got it in. It's kind of like a lot of personality management. Let's call it that.
I just wasn't aware of it, and it's a lesson that we all learn. And I
Yeah.
found, as we've all found, it exists in every business, in every industry, which is
Mhm.
why comics tends to hire young kids who have some talent, and then chews them up and spits them out because we're like, oh my god, I'm drawing comics, I can't believe it. But
Yeah.
there's no career counseling or here's how the business works. They just throw you in off the deep end,
Wow.
sink or swim, man. So, but
And
this
then the
illustration
longer,
was fun. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
And then I was going to say also the other thing is the longer you're in, you go through different administrations,
Yes.
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Because you
Yep.
might be the favorite of one administration, and then the new administration comes in and go, well, I don't want to hire anybody that worked on that other thing. I
Yep.
want to.
Wasn't aware of that either. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's why I ended up leaving comics at the time very deliberately to go into video games and commercial art because I felt like, well, if I'm going to get treated that way, I at least want to get paid what I'm worth.
Mhm.
So this here gained me a lifelong friend in Walter Dutch Richter, who was the director of Buckaroo Banzai, which is like one
Wow.
of my all-time favorite movies. Rick and I talk probably every couple weeks now and have done forever since I did this cover because I had heard like was it Moonstone? I can't remember who was publishing this. I think it
Uh-huh.
was I
Yeah.
think it was the Gentiles, yeah. And I was like, so I just want you to know I'm doing your first issue cover. Just understand that. I don't care if you pay me or not. I'm doing it and just shut up and let me do it. This damn thing took me a week and a half because I was on a road trip at the time. But I had to get it done. And I wanted it to be, the best thing I'd done at the time.
Mhm.
So when I was putting it together and sending in the comps, WD Richter got my email from Joe Gentile, I think, and started sending me voluminous reference and all kinds of stuff. And then it turned into here's the photos of Dion Arbus. You might like this. Here's photos from Vivian Meyer, and like he's a big photography nerd. And so he exposed me to all this wild stuff that I had no idea about. And so he became one of my mentors as I went into TV, and now as I'm going into film. He's a complete doll of a human being, as I would expect. Mac Rauch, who was the writer of Buckaroo Banzai, is like a Hunter S. Thompson sort of character. He's very mysterious. I really don't know much about Mac, but because of this, WD and I have become pals, and so I'm just tickled I got to do it because I have seen Buckaroo Banzai 5,000 times. It never gets old. Got to draw Ellen Barkin. The girl in the red hood is the character that I actually contributed, who is now part of the mythos. Cannot remember her name naturally, but they said we need another woman in the Hong Kong Cavaliers. I don't know what she does in the band. She might be the road manager. I can't recall. But so then for me, being like a teenage fan of Buckaroo Banzai, now like he gave me a nickname. Now I'm part of the Banzai Institute. My nickname is Avalanche. I couldn't tell you why. So as a kid, I'm just like, wow, I'm part of the Buckaroo Banzai universe. And no one cares. It's a cult film, but for me, it was like one of the biggest things in my life. So and I think they've reprinted this a couple times. I was just tickled to get to do it. So I overworked it. I rendered it all to hell.
Is that traditional or digital?
I'll tell you later. Is the answer.
I do love that.
No, but do you want to know the story about the watermelon? If you have a second.
All right, well, let's hear it real quick.
But very quickly, the reason why there's a watermelon in that shot where Pepe Serna and Jeff Goldblum are walking through the room, and Jeff says, "Why is there a watermelon there?" And Pepe says, "I'll tell you later." It's because the guy who was producing Buckaroo Banzai, Sidney Beckerman, hated the movie, and he hated the fact that they were doing it, and he was actively trying to sabotage the film. I want to say it was the first film WD directed. They stuck that in there to see if Sidney Beckerman was even watching the dailies. And it turned out that he wasn't. And that meant he had just given up on the movie, and that way they got to do what they wanted. That's why the watermelon's there. So that's inside baseball.
That's a great story.
Right.
All right. Matt, we're running out of time. I think that was our last thing, but this will be a perfect time to do my favorite thing. See, now I put myself in the spot. I got to find the thing.
Have I been talking too much? I'm sorry.
No, this is fantastic, but we have to wheels up at some point. Matt, this is the point of the show we call the lightning round.
Lightning round.
So we have been compiling, stacking like cordwood questions for you, and then you're going to give quick, concise, snappy answers. How's that sound?
Copy that.
All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to give this up to Stone Cold. Go for it, my friend.
All righty. I don't know how to pronounce that. Zerino on the YouTube.
Rhino.
Matt's early work included villains and vigilantes characters for people in high school.
That's right.
That's fantastic. Was that like in what, like as a supplement or something?
No, it was just for we played V&V because I wasn't a big Dungeons and Dragons guy. I didn't like Champions. I thought it was goofy, so we played villains and vigilantes, and I was the artist, and so I cared much more about drawing their characters than I did actually playing the game.
That's
Matt, I'll have to call you up when I start my Marvel superheroes role-playing game.
Right. I'm there for it. V&V, very quickly, me and Dan Panosian, although I didn't know Dan at the time, he did a lot of that when he was in high school as well.
I think
that's how he got his. Yeah. That's how Danny got his start. Yeah,
that's
great.
But he was making money off it. I was doing it for free. He was smart.
Are they in published modules or adventures?
No, it was just on the character sheets, just for my friends. So I'm assuming they still have them, but it was full color.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
That's my niece.
I think we pieced that together from our context clues. It's so interesting to see my uncle as an amazing artist. So glad I took after his talent.
She's a better dragon artist than I am by a country mile. I'm not good at drawing dragons, but yeah, she's amazing. I'm glad she's doing it.
That's fantastic. And a follow-up, what do you want to learn to draw?
Nice.
Animals. I suck at drawing animals, and I love animals, but I am the worst. So yes, animals.
That's great. Thank you for those questions. Joe Writer on Facebook. This old home week.
Joe, only if you write it. Yes, Joe's a pal, a close friend. And like, yes, absolutely. And all he ever does is bug me to do something with US1. He's absolutely right.
That's fantastic.
Let's do it, Joe. Let's go.
Tristan Wainer. Any thoughts on the change in leadership at Dark Horse?
If we have a separate show, I got lots of Dark Horse stories. We don't have the time.
We might have to have you
Mike
back.
Mike was Richardson was a lovely guy who told me that I was fired from Dark Horse through a misunderstanding involving Mike Mignola and Scott Alley, who I'm glad got his just desserts, but we'll have to cover that in a separate show.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, there's a long soap opera there.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have a tea episode with Matt Haley.
I think so.
Comic book tea with Matt
Yes.
Haley.
Because now I'm not in the business anymore. I can tell the truth. So yes, because I'm terrible at drawing dragons. She's amazing. She's really
and
good.
Melissa on YouTube asks, favorite project you've worked on and why?
Boy, if it's comics, it's still got to be Elseworld's finest, Supergirl and Batgirl, because Tom Simmons, who wrote it with me and inked it, did these unbelievable designs. He did a robotic sort of Flash design that ended up in the Injustice video game, which we never got paid for. We got to just do the entire DC universe, and he's a big DC nerd and really helped me out with that stuff. He's such a good writer. He's such a good costume designer. He's a brilliant inker. I wish he would come back into the business. As far as film and TV, I'd have to say Black Star Warrior, which is got to be on the air somewhere, which is like a blaxploitation sci-fi thing. As far as film, it's the that I'm getting ready to direct that we don't have time to talk about. Sorry.
Well, we got a little time. We got a little time.
Sorry, you said you were out of time.
That was our lightning round. You blew through those questions. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're the first person to actually listen to me when I told you.
Because I think I definitely was talking. I was trying to watch the clock, and I was really vomiting out the story. I apologize. So.
Well,
how did you get it? How did you go into film? Because it's not like a direct shot going from comics.
If you've got like 3 minutes, I can give you the Cliff's Notes version.
Yeah,
so I was living in Portland, Oregon for many years, and it's kind of a sad story. I apologize. I had a number of people die around me in very close succession. Mike Ringo, obviously, my little brother, a couple people from Dark Horse, a couple of other close friends. And like every couple months, I was getting a phone call, like having to go to a funeral. And when my little brother passed, I went a little nuts, and I thought I was going to be next. And so I thought, well, what I really want to do is something with film, and I better do it right now because I'm probably going to get hit by a car tomorrow. So I think I was working with a writer very briefly, and we came up with a pitch for an indie movie about two guys locked in a bank vault. I thought, well, how small can we make this? How cheap can we make it? And I had a very quick consulting gig, spent all my money on this thing. I don't think I even paid rent that month. And it's on my website, I think it's called Safe. And we shot on a corner set. And I planned it really carefully for like 3 months because I didn't want anything, because I was spending my own money. And it didn't suck when we got done. We didn't get to make the movie, but I just got bit by the bug of working with actors. And so actually the last 15, 16 years, I've been training as a live action director, and I've been fortunate to get to do some. But I started doing it because I wanted to get out of the house. My joke is I'm an extrovert with an introvert's job. And while I love what I do and I get to work at home and everything, the times I've been fortunate enough to direct actors and then, cut footage and put it all together, it feels like it felt when I first was doing comic books. So it's been very much, we've got a project that we're doing, and I wish I could talk about it. I can't. Which would hopefully be my feature debut if the world will ever stop being on fire. And I'm doing it mainly because my training now, I've been training with Judith Weston for 16 years, who wrote directing actors, about how do you tell a story. Fortunately, with my comic book background, I can sit and just, well, here's the shot I'm looking for. Well, here's what I'm thinking about doing. And it allows me to communicate with the crew very easily and hopefully not waste their time. Because I'm very proud of the things that we've done. We make our days, we get done, because I just don't want to hang around on set all day. I want to go home, and the crew and the cast are usually pretty happy about that. So
when do you think you will be able to talk about it?
Next time I'm on with you guys. Next time we have more time.
That's great.
But it's nice to tease them. Always leave them wanting more, right, J-Dot?
That's right. They always leave them hanging a little bit.
Yeah. What I can tell you about this project is it's executive produced by Robert Engels. Bob was the showrunner on the original Twin Peaks. He wrote Fire Walk with Me.
Mhm.
I know him because I had the rights to do Twin Peaks comics, which we didn't get to do, but
What?
I know we don't have enough time. But it allowed me to stay very close with Bob and friendly with David Lynch.
Yeah.
I don't know Mark Frost all that well, and Bob has been a TV showrunner for decades, and he was still in business with David, and so through that, we have put this thing together, and that's where I'm going to leave it because I can't
So in
talk
your
about
favorite parts, would you,
it. Next
in
time.
your, if you could choose to do one or the other, would you rather do film or would you rather do comics?
I'd rather do film because I am actually much better trained as a director. The joke has been, I remember being on set one time and my first AD leaned over and said, I hope you get to do more of this directing thing because you're really great as a director. When you're not on set, you're kind of a dick. And I took it in this, no, I took it in the spirit it was intended. Directing actors has actually improved every single aspect of my life. It taught me a lot of social skills that I didn't have when I was just sitting drawing comics. I adore comics. I would love to come back. I actually think I'm doing a comic project with V2, but I can't with my friend Rance, but I don't have my contract yet, so I can't talk about it, which would be great. I love doing comics, man. But it would be film because God, I love working with actors. I'm always the guy who's like, can we do one more take? Can we do one more shot? I just come alive. I'm like a different person on set, man. The first time I did it, it was like I left my body
Yeah.
and I came back in. I don't remember. I don't remember directing because I'm always busy working. And I come back and look at the footage and go, geez, we did a pretty good job, you know? So yeah,
I love it.
I love directing. I can't wait to do more, man.
I
You know? But I
love
went
it.
from comics, which is like almost impossible to get into, to making film, which is impossible to get into. So I really should just go become a plumber or something. You know what I mean? But I don't
All
have
right.
any other job skills.
All right, that's it. Pencils down. And Matt, you've given me a great idea for our next podcast. It's called I Can't Talk About It with Matt Haley.
Let's do it. But if you'd like some tea that's gonna piss a few people off, let's do it, man. I'm not in the business. I don't care anymore.
All right,
Boy, have I got some stories.
I we love to have you back on for a part 2 because I feel we've barely scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Man. I think there's as I also say on the thing, where does the time go?
Where does the time go?
I feel like we just got started.
Well, I appreciate you having me. And J Dot, I am so proud of you with the Leon stuff. I keep seeing your posts. And God bless you. That's amazing, dude. To see how far you've come and how you have just blown up, it's killer. I'm just so proud of you, man.
Thank you so much, brother. It means
Mikey, I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm glad you're back out traveling and whatnot. And Steve, call me. Let's talk about avant-garde. Come on. Come on. Don't leave me hanging.
I love it. Thank you. Part 2 will be so fun. So
Part 2 will be fun.
It's been written in the scrolls. Let's do it.
That's right. That's right. So
right.
Just very quickly, if anybody wants to catch me, the best place to catch me is Instagram, Matt Haley Art. I've got a site, matthaley.com. That's where I hang out. I don't do a lot of social media. This is it.
And please go follow our guests.
Sure, that's where the latest art, the stuff I do on stage, that's where I post it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, Matt. So that's going to be it for us for tonight. Next week, we're going to have Ben Harvey on, a fantastic cover artist, and one of my old students who's now all grown up and making all the moves. So I'm
nice.
Look at me now, Papa. Look at me.
Papa, can you hear me? So
thank you, Matt, gentlemen.
Don't leave. We got to do a thing. You got to do the thing with us.
Oh, okay.
I have it on good authority that Dr. Walnuts, he's taken the place of Cumberbatch. Now it's Dr. Paulie Walnuts, said in his velour tracksuit, I heard Quasimodo predicted all of this. That we are in the end game. So it will behoove all of us and also our guest, Matt Haley, to make sure you wash those Kirby hands and catch us out next week. Let's see some Kirby hands. Put them up, Matt. Oh, that's a good Kirby hand.
That's right.
Very cool.
Without the square tips.
Oh, yeah, without no square tips.
Without those square tips.
I love it. All right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.